You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is writer, director, producer Sasha Collington. And we're talking about her brand new movie, which I absolutely loved. It's called Love Type D. Welcome to the show, Sasha.
Well, thanks very much. I'm really pleased to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I know it's very late where you are in England, so I appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Great. So let's talk about this movie. I just thought the concept was just so unique and so different, and it's just really well done too, and I absolutely loved it. So our audience, our listening audience, knows what this film is about. Can you give a brief synopsis of what Love Type D is all about?
Yeah, sure. So it's about this woman who gets dumped for the 12th time in a row. And this 12th time is actually by a relative of her boyfriend, so not even in person, getting broken up with. And then she kind of feels like, why does this keep happening to me? It's really strange. And she actually learns that she has a loser in love gene. So in the film, a fifth of the population, so it would be a fifth of the audience, have this gene. And if you have it, it means that all your relationships will inevitably end badly.
And there's the dump E, and they dumped.
Yes.
So where did this concept come up with? How did you come up with the idea for this? Because it's just, again, it's very unique and very fun.
Oh, thanks. I think I'm quite interested in the whole, nature nurture idea. And I think sometimes, in life, it can feel, that you have a string of bad luck. And so, and sometimes it can feel like no matter how hard you try or what you do, things just keep going wrong. And so I just thought, well, what if you found out that there was actually an underlying reason for this? That what seemed like a string of bad coincidences in your life was actually like, symptomatic of something bigger. And so, yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly how the premise came about, but it was through that sort of line of thinking.
Well, I mean, I think so many people can relate to this, who certainly have been on both sides, have done the dumping and been dumped, definitely along the way. So, the young boy, let's talk about him because he is amazing. And tell me his name, the young actor who plays him, because he's just so cute and adorable and fun in this film, and perfect, really just perfect in this role. So how did you tell us a little bit about him and why you decided to use a young boy as the deliverer of the news? I guess we could call him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so well, I'm glad that you liked his character. So he's the younger brother of the main character's ex-boyfriend. So he's the one that's sent to deliver the news, and he's 11, almost 12. And so he's I really had fun writing his character because he's a very intelligent little boy, but he doesn't really understand anything about emotions yet. So he's quite sort of factual. So, when he's sent to do this errand of basically ending this relationship on behalf of his 25-year-old older brother, it's just like on a list of things to do, like pick up dry cleaning, end relationship with brother's girlfriend. And he thinks that it will be somewhat simple to execute. And so, yeah, he was very fun. And the actor we got to play him was this 12-year-old a boy who was quite hard to find actually because he has a ton of dialogue. So it was one of the last people I saw, and I saw a self-tape where he introduced himself, and he introduced himself before he even did the dialogue of the scene. His introduction where he just said, hello, this is me, my name is, it was so funny that I immediately felt, oh, this boy is amusing.
Well, he is definitely amusing. So he did that in his audition tape just by his introduction. That's really amazing. He's going to have an interesting long career if he decides to continue in this business. But he's a central part to this role, I mean, to the movie, obviously, but it's always interesting. I love talking about casting when I do this show because I always think that's such a fascinating process in itself. And I always hear it's usually like one of the last people I saw that finally just clicked, and I knew he was the person for the film. And he, as I said, he embodies this character to a T. Is he like that in person?
There are aspects, I think. I mean, he's very intelligent and also very diligent, so I would make script changes very late in the day, let's say, for the average 11-year-old boy to relearn entire scenes, and he would come the next morning with his script in his little folder, with everything prepared, all the new lines learned. So I think there are aspects, probably Wilbur, I would say, is a lot more exaggerated version, but I think especially at that age, he's a bit older now, as happens with child actors. The tragedy is that they grow up.
Yes.
You want them to stay that age forever because they're so perfect at a certain age for a certain part. And we actually shot the film in stages, so he was aging while we were still shooting, which was obviously much to my dismay because I was really worried in case his voice broke during the shooting, because we shot it over a period of a couple of years, but
Really?
it's meant to happen in a couple of weeks or months.
Right. So what is his name, so our audience knows the young actor's name?
Oh yeah, so his name is Rory Stroud, the
Right.
little actor who plays Wilbur.
So you filmed this over 2 years. Let's talk about that. I haven't heard that very often, that the actual, I mean, I know that getting a film ready for production can take quite a bit of time, but as far as filming it over 2 years, so talk about that process and why you did it that way.
Yeah, so it was actually really connected with the finance that, kind of raised money in stages. So it wasn't sort of, let's say, a creative decision to shoot it that way.
Okay.
And I did worry because, I was thinking of that film Boyhood, when he grows up on camera, and I felt, oh no, I'm making this, but like, accidentally, where it's not serving the plot.
Right. That is funny. So let's talk about the whole cast. The young woman, and tell us her name too, who plays the dumped ex-lover. What is her name?
Yeah, so the lead role was played by an Australian actress called Maeve Dermody. And she's really she's really fantastic, and I definitely again, it was late in the day, but I had seen her in a film previously, and so I remembered her when I was having problems casting the role, and then I thought of her and I thought that I found her so funny, and kind of in a sort of unpredictable way. Like, her delivery was always very unique, and you didn't expect her to say things in a certain way. So that's how I sort of contacted her agent in the middle of the night, like one of those moments where you feel, oh, the right actress must be out there, and then it turned out to be her.
And she is very good in this role and very quirky, and she is very, very good, and just a joy to watch this whole cast. And then, so let's talk about her love interest in this film. What's his name, and how did you end up casting him?
Yeah, so her love interest, who's the one who sends his younger brother to break this bad news about the relationship, is played by Oliver Farnworth. And that he's a British actor, and so he was in the stage version of The Girl on the Train.
Oh, okay.
When it played here, so I wanted somebody who, I mean, it's difficult obviously because right at the beginning he makes this decision to send his younger brother, which obviously isn't the nicest way to break up with somebody. It's obviously quite a difficult thing to do in the best of circumstances. But I wanted somebody that felt like could play that, but at the same time you needed to feel like you understood why she really loved him. And so it was it's a balance for that actor, and I think he got it spot on.
He did. He did. Yeah. So where did you come up with the idea of the elephant pheromones? Is that what we?
Yeah, yeah. So we have elephant
That's something that came
pheromones.
out of real life.
Yeah, exactly. It's a documentary of my life, basically. It's been mislabeled in terms of the genre. So I'm very interested in science because the science theme does run through it. And so so I was thinking about sort of the whole nature of attraction and pheromones. The fact that so there are a lot of scientific things in there, but obviously there's a balance where you want it to be fun and funny. So it's kind of I do a lot of research and then I'd throw half of it out when I wrote the scene in order to try and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely that is a fun scene. I mean, well, several of those that concern elephant pheromones were rather fun, for
Oh,
sure.
thanks.
So, what is you wrote it, you directed it, you produced it. Which hat do you prefer out of those three?
I think probably out of the three, definitely directing, just because writing's a bit solitary. As great as it is, to kind of bring something to the page. I think that that it's a solitary activity, unless you're working in a writer's room. I think must be great when you've got all these other people, all these amazing minds to kind of bounce off from. But and I think the directing is nice because you really you have so many kind of collaborators that you're working with, and that's I think what it's all about, really.
Did you said we wrote some scenes with the young man in the film. Did you rewrite a lot of scenes as you were directing it?
Yeah, I think I was constantly tweaking the dialogue and changing things as I went along, with the script, just trying to enhance it or improve it. And sometimes I'd feel like, oh, I haven't quite cracked a scene, and then I would have the idea, oh, that's what it should be. So yeah, I was sort of adapting it. And then in rehearsals we would improv the scene and we'd do the dialogue, and then sometimes if I didn't feel the dialogue totally worked, I would tweak things following the rehearsals, just to kind of if any jokes weren't landing, I'd try and replace them, and so that was the benefit, I guess, of being both roles.
See, I was going to ask you. So during that improv, because I know a lot of directors do the improv, to see what the actors might come up with too. Was there anything that came out of that some of the actors contributed that you felt, that's really good, let's change that to fit that? Did that happen often?
Definitely, yeah. So for example, the main character's kind of Frankie, who's called Frankie, her boyfriend who sends the brother, who's called Thomas, so his various characters piling on top of each other. But anyway, his new girlfriend, I hadn't really decided what her profession was. And then we did an improv with the 11-year-old boy who was playing Wilbur, Rory Stroud. And then in an improv, he said that she was an astronaut. And I found it so funny, the idea that that of all the new girlfriends he could get, it would be this gorgeous astronaut. But then actually that stuck in the film, and we did a photo shoot with her in the spacesuit, and it became part of the narrative. So there are definitely instances like that, where someone says something, some off the cuff remark, and it just gives you an idea and it kind of fits.
Well, it is interesting to choose being an astronaut as a profession, no question about that. So, and that just added to the whimsy of the film, actually, too. So what was the most difficult part for you when you were filming this? You said you did this over a couple of years, so talk about that and that process too, because that is unusual, and certainly putting it together and editing it at the end. So talk about that process and what was the most difficult part of making this movie.
I think the longevity of it. I mean, there were two sides to that coin, because on the one side, it's just retaining enthusiasm for a project that's going on a long time, I think is challenging. And also that you sort of evolve and change as a person, you know, over time, or, you know, you hope that you do. And so I think that, you know, the me that thought of the original idea is not the me that was sitting in the edit, because by that point, you know, development plus the 2 years of shooting plus, you know, some of the editing, you know, I changed. And so therefore, actually, there was also a benefit to that, in the fact that, you know, by that point, I think I had new ideas that we integrated into things. And so, yeah, so there's a plus and a minus to it being such a long process. But I think the biggest challenge was, yeah, retaining some. I think I read a quote from a famous director that they said that you know, on set, to remind yourself, you know, about what the movie is really about. And I thought it was a really good quote, because actually in the midst of all the chaos, because sometimes things are going wrong, or, you know, there's so many things that can go wrong on a film set. I think like standing back and like reminding yourself, yeah, about the story and what it, you know, what it's really about is kind of this key piece of advice that I thought, yeah, that's really useful.
Well, that's good, you know, because you're right. I hadn't even thought about the fact that you might begin over that long period of time, beginning to lose what you had set out to do. And again, as you also said, you know, it evolves and changed over the period of time also. You have a great supporting cast. I love the whole, all of them, all of the dumpies that work with, you know, that are part of this process that everybody's going through. So talk a bit about that and casting, and because you chose some really fun, quirky characters.
Oh, thanks. Well, so in the world of the film, there's essentially these two categories of people. So there's people who end all their relationships, and people then who have this gene, and every relationship they basically end up heartbroken. So when I was doing the casting, you know, we had, you know, wanted to have a range of people, because I think, you know, with regard to like people's, you know, kind of behavior and romance, it isn't indicative of other areas of their life. Like you can have people who are very successful in every other aspect, and then, you know, romances go wrong. And so I think I wanted to make sure that we had like a spectrum of like different people and different experiences, but who all had this one thing in common, you know. So like casting them was really fun, and as an ensemble, they worked well together, because they are almost like, there are many characters, but also they also act as one character almost in the film, as like a supporting sort of chorus.
Right.
Let's
Yes.
say. Yeah. So I think it was, you know, we looked at people doing comedy, doing stand-up, and we looked at a range of people to find those actors to play those kind of supporting roles of, like, you know, particularly around the characters who are also, so in the film, if you have this gene, you're type D. So the people that were type D, you know, we really like looked very hard to find the right people, and who would all have a different experience. So some people have been like left at the altar, other people had like different other stories of like, you know, romances gone wrong.
Again, you know, really good casting on this. I mean, this film is just fun all the way through. It's just, I see a lot of films, as you know, and some stand out more than others, and this one particularly did. And I know for the audience who, I know a lot of us during the pandemic, all we wanted was something light. I've heard this over and over again. I didn't want anything heavy. I didn't want anything too dramatic. The world was pretty dramatic as it was, and we were all looking for something light to watch. And this movie definitely is that kind of film where it's just fun. And well, of course, I love anything to do with England and English films. So I'm just, you give me an English film any day of the week, and I'm there, because I just feel that. Yeah, there's always a different sensibility that I enjoy very, very much with that. What for you? Is this your first film that you've directed?
Yeah, that's correct. Like first feature, yeah.
Wow, you did a fabulous job for your first
Oh, thank
feature.
you.
Yeah, and is it the first one you've written also?
Yeah, first like full length, yeah.
Wow. So, are you working on something else right now?
Yeah, I'm working on different ideas for like episodic, because now I don't know about you, but I find myself watching so many series. And so yeah, I started to think of ideas, started to work on ideas, yeah, that are series based, but kind of also have comedies, but also have like an absurd element to them, a bit like this, or a scientific element, but very different.
Well, the way you like to combine science and comedy, I find that interesting. So tell me a little bit more about that. What is it about science and comedy that you feel go hand in hand? Because usually that's not two genres you put together.
I don't know. I think it's just I think there are just so many interesting themes in there, and I suppose that's the thing, is that when you're writing, you're looking for interesting thematics. And so when I was thinking about, like, kind of nature, nurture, and what makes you who you are, and what dictates your behavior, and also to what degree do you have control, because sometimes it can feel that things happen to you, and other times it can feel that, oh, you reflect and you see, oh, actually your own actions have this degree of consequence. And so I think it's thematics like that. So it's I'd say it's light on the science. It isn't an educational
Right. No,
video
no.
to make it. In fact, but I have done my research into the scientific aspect. But yeah, I think it's to do with themes that I find very interesting, that themes that relate to sort of being human and the difficulties of being human that are innate in some of these scientific discoveries and topics.
Very fascinating. I've come up with this theory lately that I've started talking about. I go, life is like Legos. When you look at life, they all start to fit together. And you go, if I hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened. Or if I had taken that road, this other thing wouldn't have happened. And so when you start to look back at your life, even daily, you go at the end of the day and go, okay, so what transpired today that led me in this other direction that I was not intending to go into this today. So it's kind of what you're doing with your film is sort of the same way. It's like all these little pieces start to fit together, and making those decisions. As all of us have to make daily decisions about what direction to go in, and just like, okay, what road do I go down today? Maybe if I hadn't taken that particular road, maybe I wouldn't have seen that accident that took place, or whatever it may be. So it's kind of fascinating. So episodic, you said you're going to kind of do something episodic next. Can you talk?
Yeah,
Are you just right now in the creative process of creating the idea, or are you further along in that process?
I'm quite early, so I'm just kind of in the creative process of like working out like a few different ideas that are kind of, I say, melded genres. So comedy being one of each each pairing, and then with there's one sort of murder mystery satire. And then a couple others. So kind of within the writing stage.
So fun. I mean, I love the creative process, though. It's so fun to allow your imagination to go and create whatever you are feeling or seeing in that moment in time. Who, as a director, what director do you feel inspires you the most?
It's always such a difficult question, because there's so many great directors and filmmakers, aren't there? And so it's always like, it's always difficult to say. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, and so so much, so kind of those like high concept 80s comedies really influenced me, like Groundhog Day and Ivan Reitman, and then also Big. And I think in terms of comedy, like those directors, I can't now, the name eludes me, of the director of Big. I know it's a woman.
For what movie?
For the movie Big.
Oh, Big. Oh, I think it was Penny Marshall. I think it was Penny Marshall.
Yes, that's right.
Penny Marshall.
Yeah. And so I think, those films, I just feel that they had so many elements. They were so well done, you know, so well directed in terms of that they just said something really profound, I think, about life, but they were funny and they were meaningful. And I think, you know, I think that's kind of what had the biggest impact on me, that, you know, I really like the high concept. You know, but I think with high concept, it's really hard to execute, and you know, it's so much to do with the director. And I think with those films, they're just, for me, they're just perfect. You know, they're so perfect, and you know, at the end you really feel that you've been on a journey, and you know, you've, as well as it being funny, it's also been something that meant something and sort of gave you a bit of a life lesson, but not in a didactic, you know, sort of overbearing way, just did that nice sort of, you know, gentle life lesson of like, you know, slight self-improvement that those, you know, really good 80s comedies had.
Yes, they did. Well, our time is up. Sasha, where can people find Love Type D? Where can they watch?
Yeah, so it's going to be on VOD. I know it's going to be on Amazon and also on Apple and like a variety of other platforms.
Wonderful. Everybody search out Love Type D. You'll just have a good, fun evening, and it's enjoyable. And almost the whole family can watch this film. There's nothing in there that, you know, would take away. So I thank you, Sasha, so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh, thank you. I've had a great time.
Me too. Me too. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, where all the shows are archived, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, the iHeart Podcast Network, Apple Play, Google Play, iTunes, YouTube. We're everywhere. Your smart TV, anywhere that you listen to your podcast, you'll find the show, The Jan Price Show, all about movies. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Jan Price Show. Thank you all for listening.